We all have relationships, all of which need to be maintained. And while this can be difficult at times, it can also bring many beautiful things. And with a better understanding of perspectives, I think that having relationships can become much easier. Welcome everyone, my name is Tobias Philipp, and in this episode I want to share what I think about building, having and maintaining relationships. So what in today's society are relationships? Well, of course it is a bond between two people, but this bond can take many different forms, and that's why I think that it is almost impossible to give it one general description, because you cannot predict in advance how it will develop or how a relationship even should be. I don't think that there's anyone who can explicitly explain how a relationship should be formed. And that's why almost every relationship in this world is uniquely shaped. But I think that there's a baseline which is needed to even form a relationship. And I think that if we can stick to just that, then there should be any problems, or there can only become a few problems. However, in today's society, it becomes harder and harder because we all have less privacy, which means that we know more and more about each other. And I believe that this comes from social media, which allows us to discover more than we ever could before. And this creates a society with many different opinions and many different expectations. And as more and more people think different about different things, misunderstandings and misconceptions can arise, which potentially can cause conflict. So to even have a good relationship, we must understand different perspectives and different ideas. And this is what I think is one of the most difficult and challenging things to achieve, especially when it comes to important topics that shape our whole world, that have a huge impact on our lives. And this is a point where opinions and ideas can be very different. And because of the ability to gain more knowledge contributes to this challenge. Because think about it for yourself, think about children. Their whole opinions are shaped by their parents or by their families, and they gave them the knowledge which they need to shape their own opinions. Because gaining knowledge, that is what shapes our opinions. But returning to the idea of a baseline, I think, or I believe, that it all starts with acceptance. Even when viewpoints are completely different, just trying to accept it, or at least listening to it and exploring those perspectives, that is what I think can make relationships work way better. And I don't think that it's even that surprising that we have so many different viewpoints, because in the past there weren't that many accessible different cultures and different viewpoints and different opinions. But however, today, in today's society, the internet exposes us to a lot of contradictions, which then in turn shapes again everyone's viewpoints and everyone's opinions. And this can even be if you live together in the same house. Everything you consume outside of that house, all the people you talk to, all the things you watch on your phone or you listen to on your phone, that is what shape you as an individual. And this can lead to growing far apart from each other. So to highlight once again why acceptance and openness to listening to other viewpoints is so important. And I explain this as if it's something which is very simple. And I think the concept is very simple, but it's very difficult to do, also for me. And especially it's difficult to do when you are fully convinced of the opposite of what someone else thinks. And that is why I think that communication is so important. Something which is also very difficult to do, because everyone reacts differently to hearing something that they don't want to hear. And also maybe if you have a bad experience by telling something the truth, that is something which can absolutely hold you back. But not communicating will always lead to a negative outcome. That's something which I can guarantee you. And also in my experience, it's always better to just be honest about how you feel, tell someone the truth. Because we might think that someone will react negative, but I've rarely find that to be the case. Because people in the end will more respect you for telling the truth than if they would discover that you were lying to them. But it is challenging to find the right balance, because not everyone needs to know everything. And giving someone too little information can lead to misconceptions or misunderstandings, which then in turn can lead to bad relationships. And that is why I think that trust becomes eventually the foundation of every good and strong relationship. But trust can only develop over a longer period of time, because you cannot trust someone you just met fully with all the things you know, with your whole life. And that's why building a strong relationship just requires a lot of time and a lot of effort. And which is why, in my opinion at least, relationships can take on different forms, because you just simply cannot have the same strong and good relationship with everyone. And that's also, for example, why people who are just getting together spend a lot of time together and spend less time with their friends or other people they used to hang out with, because they really need that time to build their relationship, especially if their goal is to stay together for their whole future, so for a very long period of time. So how do I think that we can build and maintain good relationships? Well, first of all, we need to be open-minded and recognize that there are just many different perspectives. And it's not a strange thing, because we are influenced by so many different factors. And that also makes it very unrealistic to expect everyone to think the same way. And then also the acceptance of it. Because forcing your opinion on someone else will only make things worse, because not everyone is even open to hear someone else's opinion. And this sometimes just means that you will see or speak to someone less often than you used to do. But I think that if we can maintain that baseline, we can measure a relationship not only on how much we interact with each other, but by more important things like helping each other out when necessary, supporting one another, being there for someone when they need you, and just being a positive inspiration. And I think if we can measure by those things, that we might already have much better relationships than we actually realize. So in my view, relationships will always be challenging, and they may become even more difficult in the future with all the new innovations that are happening every day. But if we can commit to speaking the truth in a polite way to each other, accept different perspectives, and resist the urge to impose our own opinions, I think that we can create a different dynamic where we have better and easier relationships with each other. So these are my perspectives and those are mine experiences. Let me know what yours are in the comments. Share this episode with someone you think may benefit from it, and thank you again for listening.